Leafs Converts, TLC OGs, what's going on? This is the Leafs Convo podcast. My name is Norman James. Welcome to the Sunday Spectacular. The Leafs split their games in Florida. It's back home now to face the Arizona Coyotes. So what kind of game are we going to get from the Maple Brothers? It's a cause for contention, controversy, and certainly concern among the Leafs Convo people that I know and appreciate, including the one and only Mike Augello, who's standing by. The Leafs Convo starts now. And I'm pleased to be joined by the one and only Michael P. Augello. Happy Sunday, sir.
Good morning, Norman. How are you?
Not too bad. We're talking about the Maple Leafs playing a Sunday game, hosting the Arizona Coyotes. Are you ready for it?
It'll be interesting to see what Maple Leaf team shows up, whether it's the team that beat the best team in the league again in Tampa on Thursday, or the team that I think underwhelmed against a lowly Florida Panthers club on Friday. I mean, so far, I would say in the month of January, obviously with the Michael Hutchinson being in goal and the loss of Freddie Anderson for a while, that was an excuse. But right now, everybody is back, and this team is not playing with any consistency.
Yeah, the Leafs 0 for 1 on the power play. That power play was, second in the league, seventh in the league in the first couple of months, and it's just fallen off big time. And we talked about how the Leafs opposition is telegraphing and predicting what the Leafs are going to do. It's resulted in failure from the Leafs' perspective, and they have to make changes, not just to the power play, but to the overall game plan. Was William Nylander as bad as everybody was talking about him being in that game?
Yeah, I believe so. And I know that some people were saying, Nylander is taking all the abuse, but Austin Matthews is not. No, I mean, Austin Matthews was -3, Nylander was -3. Neither one played particularly well, but I mean, the length of the inadequacy of William Nylander is just, I think, snowballed. And I think Babcock has tried a number of things, shifting him to different lines, doing, trying them in different scenarios, playing them with Matthews, playing them with Kadri. Now, after I think the first period, he was moved off of the line with Matthews and put on the fourth line. And it's gotten to that point. I know that that Brian Burke and Nick Kyprios on Sportsnet were sort of saying, well, the next step might be a healthy scratch just to wake him up. I don't know if that does anything other than just put more pressure on Nylander, but he's simply not playing well. Matthews has not played well recently, but Nylander has not played well for 18 games now, and now it's pretty noticeable, and it's getting to be, to a lot of Leaf fans, a bit annoying.
The Leafs didn't need William Nylander. They don't need him now. Things were going along pretty fine until he came along. He's the wrench. And it's not that he's not a good player, and it's not that he didn't fit in with this organization prior to the season. But right now, he's the wrench. Kristen Shilton from TSN tweeting out recently the line combinations for tonight's game against the Coyotes. On the first line, it's Tavares, flanked by Hyman and Marner. Matthews centering the second line. And of course, that's cause for a lot of contention and controversy on social media right now. Janssen and Brown flanking him. Kadri, the third line center. Marleau and Kapanen working with Maz. And then it's Gauthier, Lindholm, and your buddy, William Nylander. There's a lot of reaction to where William Nylander's playing and Matthews, because again, it's everyone else's fault. It's the coach's fault that Matthews can't get going. If Matthews is a top 5 player in this league, you put him on a line with a couple of dusters and they're producing. So this idea that someone's got to get him going is total nonsense, and it's just a part of the culture today. It's everyone else's fault and not your own. If you are a tertiary support player, you need to get going by being aligned with somebody better than you. But when you're Austin Matthews and you're supposed to be one of the best players in the league, you're the straw that stirs the drink. I don't care which line you're on, and I don't care who you're playing with. Okay? So the defensive pairings, Riley Hainsey, Zaitsev Gardner, maybe mix those two up. Dermott Ozhiganov and Marinson Hole. Mike, we're going to keep this really brief. Give me your thoughts on those lines, the defensive combos. We'll go from there.
Well, simply, I mean, and first of all, those line combinations may be completely scrambled by the middle of the first period based on how they play, but based on how they played in Florida on Friday, Nylander was a bit of a defensive liability, and Matthews wasn't great as well, and that is the reason why a trusted guy like Connor Brown, who is a Babcock favorite, is being paired with Matthews and with Andreas Janssen. I mean, I get that Connor Brown is not as good of an offensive player, but at this point, what is William Nylander providing offensively? Nothing. So at this point, it's sort of do no harm putting a guy who has played with Matthews before, who scored 20 goals in his rookie season, primarily playing with Matthews, and hoping that it sparks Austin Matthews to get going. But I mean, and I have problems with the fourth line. The fourth line is, to my mind, not very good. You've got Lindholm playing out of position. Freddie Gauthier, I continue to say, is not an NHL player, but because he's big and because Babcock likes size in his lineup and doesn't have a lot of pushback in the lineup, he's going to continue to play Freddie Gauthier until he has an option that is acceptable. But I mean, right now, this team is really looking for some additions that they can get before the deadline, because right now, I think, other than promoting some guys from the Marlies who I think would help them out, or getting Tyler Ennis back in the lineup, this lineup right now is a bit stagnant.
Here's an addition: William Nylander, the old William Nylander. Why doesn't he add himself to the lineup and help this team get going? Here's another addition: Austin Matthews. What happened to that guy? Remember we were talking about Austin Matthews being right up there with Connor McDavid? Not a chance. I made this point on the last podcast, Mike. The Leafs need to be great before they make some additions to become greater. There's no way that this team is going to sputter and claw its way to the trade deadline, get a couple of additions, and think that all of a sudden its game is going to be overall enhanced.
There is a precedent with Matthews. He had a long scoreless streak in his rookie year, and I'm not worried about Austin Matthews. The only reason I'm worried about Nylander is because it's happened from the beginning of his tenure since he signed the contract in December the 1st. Based on the first 2 years with the Leafs, we know that he can score at the NHL level. We know he's a quality player. It just seems, the answers that he gave after the game on Friday, it's like he really, this is the first time he's had this sort of extended slump, and he's sort of befuddled why it's happening. I mean, Jonas Siegel reported this morning that he shaved his beard. He's looking for anything that can change things right now. But I look at this team right now, and I look at where they're situated. Barely holding on to second place in the Atlantic Division because Boston and Montreal lost yesterday. They have to turn things around. But again, I look at this team. They're missing a physical aspect. They're missing depth on defense. We saw what was talked about last night on Saturday Night Headlines, where the Leafs are looking for the right shot defenseman. They could be interested in a Radko Gudas or a Jake Muzzin, who's a lefty, if there are no righties available. The price tag on a Pietrangelo is going to be extremely steep. But that's the price that they have to pay, because if they don't add a top four blue liner, I think they're spinning the wheels. And if they face Boston in the first round, I don't know if they can beat them with the lineup as it currently is.
Yeah, I don't think they would beat the Bruins in a 7-game series if it started right now. Starting in April, that's a different story. The Leafs have the capability to be much greater than they've shown over the past month and a bit. Will they? And when will they? Because they need to start picking up their game overall quite soon. And it could start tonight. It could start with a great period, a great shift, an emphatic power play in which they score quick. We have to stop blaming everybody else. It's not Mike Babcock's fault these guys aren't playing. If they're as good as they're supposed to be, Austin Matthews is a first overall pick. He was on pace to score 80 goals earlier this year. It's him. He can play with anybody and make them better. So it's time for these guys to step up and get the job done. And I hope, it's interesting. Maybe we'll go through a point here, Mike, a little while where the defense is admirable. and it's doing a good job, and it's quiet. And it's the forwards we're going to get on, because for the longest time, the offense was dynamic and we were worried about the defense. Last word to you.
Well, I'm not so sure that the defense can rise to that occasion. I only say that Freddie Anderson covers up for this defense, and he did that in Tampa. But then you saw, Gardner and Zaitsev not able to get the puck out of the zone in Florida on the first goal, and that, until they solve that problem, I don't think anything's going to change. But one thing you said at the beginning of the show about the power play, they only had one opportunity. They don't draw penalties. They have to fight through checks. They have to be able to draw penalties from other teams to be able to get that power play to make it a weapon. And if they don't draw penalties, it can't be a weapon.
Dear Leafs, play better. Dear Mike Babcock, coach better. Dear Kyle Dubas, manage better. And the fans will be better. Mike, gotta go.
Thanks, Norm.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Leafs Convo podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Get at me on Twitter, at Norman James TLC. There's at Mike in Buffalo, at Kyle Outridge TLC, at SoulAce84. That's Haley Saul Mason. And of course, the one and only David Nestico, at David Nestico 200. If you're interested in some ads or sponsoring part of this podcast, we'd like to hear from you. The Leafs Convo at gmail.com. Enjoy the game tonight. The Leafs Convo is out.